It doesn't, it's not exclusively me answering questions.
Before we get into it though, how have you been, mate? Like, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I've been doing great. I have a startup. We're building a decentralized exchange on the blockchain. So we are deep in the trenches. We are building it on the latest evolution of the blockchains, which is Polkadot. And Polkadot is this new paradigm of blockchains that is sort of like this multi-blockchain ecosystem, because there is not one blockchain, there are many blockchains, and now through Polkadot, all those blockchains can communicate with each other. So we are building this one blockchain that will be serving only as an exchange, and it will allow exchange of any token from any blockchain for the token on the other blockchain. So we will be this cross-chain exchange that will serve as this hub of the biggest liquidity and the most amount of tokens in the crypto.
You've centralized the decentralized network.
Yeah, if I use the simple terms, but it will be decentralized, of course. You know, our blockchain will be decentralized as well. So.
Okay, so let's take it easy for those new to the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just go real basic, if you can, in 1 minute, because I think for those that already know about this, it'll be a very boring introduction they've heard too many times. So, trying not to use too much jargon. Yeah, what is the blockchain, and why is it better that it's decentralized?
I would take it from a less traditional approach on describing what blockchain is. I would first just describe what is internet. We are currently talking on Zoom call, and we have this exchange of information, exchange of data. So the internet is basically this global network that is operated by everyone, and it serves as a road or as a railways for sending information from my computer to your computer. So if I hit send email, you get it in like 5 seconds or something like that. So blockchain is let's say the same type of network that is distributed globally all over the world, but it serves the purpose of sending economic value. So it's just a different word for a distributed network.
The internet of money, right?
Yes, exactly. That's why it is called internet money. That's why Bitcoin was framed as this first internet money.
Now, it's funny you say that, because I'm trying to think of a comparison. So the more decentralized version of the internet was like uTorrent, right? When everyone has different torrents. Is that where the analogy falls apart, or is it similar?
It's awesome that you've come up with this topic, because torrent back in the days, it served, I'm not sure how much you remember, but when there was films or movies and you wanted to download a movie, where was that movie stored actually?
Right, and originally it would be some dodgy website, and it would take 2 hours to download. but then the torrent was, everyone had it and everyone was sharing, and part of having a torrent is that you were always uploading and downloading at the same time, right?
Exactly, and that's the principle behind blockchains and cryptocurrencies, or let's say it's one of the principles, that there is no central point where you can point to with your finger that this is where all the information is stored, because it's basically stored all over the place. In the same way how movies are stored in the torrent.
Yeah, and I suppose that's more secure, less points of failure. If one person's computer goes down, the torrent can still work.
Now there comes a little bit of history. So Bitcoin was created in 2009. It was actually right in the midst of the big economic crisis that we've had around 2008. So it was kind of like a reaction, because the main entity that was responsible for the crisis were central banks, right? So Bitcoin was created as a reaction that we have to take control out of the central banks, and we have to make it somewhat decentralized or somewhat community driven. It should be like driven by the enthusiasts on the internet, that is very public, very verifiable by anyone. It's shared by everyone, and in this way we take the control out of central banks and we give it, or we distribute it all over the internet.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, I think many people's understanding of sort of the history and the original premise and promise of the network. What I found interesting, much like the internet, used to be quite a decentralized place, but now there's kind of like most of the traffic goes through Facebook and Google, right?
Yeah, it is very often. Yeah.
Yeah, and in a similar way, I would say like the hope of a decentralized financial system seems to be shifting towards, oh, look at this coin, it's valuable because banks are investing in it. And so, as often happens, money and power tend to amalgamate.
Yeah, so yes, there are new crypto coins. There are 1,000 crypto coins, and now there is a big discussion like what decentralized actually means, because Bitcoin is fairly decentralized, but one of like few of these new currencies are sometimes almost 100% in control of one team, right? So it's sometimes really hard to tell like which is really decentralized, what is not really decentralized. But the tendency or the ideal is go with the biggest decentralization as possible. And because you have this decentralization, you can rely on the mechanisms that are set in stone, that are public, and you know that no one is going to like bend the system or somewhat trying to control it in a direction that is not desirable for everyone. But I would actually go away a little bit from the decentralization perspective. Maybe more interesting perspective is that the major difference comparing to traditional financial system is that blockchains are inherently public and are open access. That means like all the data, all the participants, all the actions are actually distributed on the internet and they are public. So in this way, anyone can join the system and anyone can come up with their ideas, can make it better, can suggest suggest some improvements over the protocols or over the blockchain design. And in this way, this whole network is growing and it's getting better and better. Comparing to traditional financial system, it's very closed. You mean you cannot go to a bank, you personally, and try to improve their systems. Maybe you can after many years of career, right? But not really like right now. And imagine there is like some people in China or maybe some people in India that are very creative, like maybe even some like 20-year-old people that are like genius programmers, and they have great ideas how to improve, I don't know, some derivative financial contracts. They can engage with the system from the day one. And that's the biggest difference.
Do you think that's just because it's newer as an organization, or do you think it's inherently built around that idea that it should be flexible and change and democratic?
No, it's inherent from the design that it's public, that anything that is stored on blockchain or on Bitcoin, it's public. And it's accessible by anyone. You for instance, you right now, you can download the Bitcoin node and you can join the network and become the verifier of the transactions. And in this way, you become the participant and you can do it this evening. It works in a similar way how, or maybe the ideal works in a similar way how like email servers were working. You know, like anyone can build their own email server and can become this email hub. And it works until this day. So in a similar ethos, the blockchains are driven by.
Okay. So I think I understand the positives, at least on a philosophical notion. I like the sound of, power to the people and creativity and rapid change. A common criticism I've heard of Bitcoin, for example, but I think any coin at that scale would, well, not any, but many coins at that scale would struggle from the same problems. Is that if you have, everyone has a ledger and a record, it ends up with the enormous computational power and enormous energy use that often gets levied as a criticism of Bitcoin. So are those criticisms fair if you compare it to how much energy banks use? Or, I mean, even regardless of that, like, is there anything that could be done to reduce that energy?
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, in the energy usage in Bitcoin, it's basically it is essentially having only one purpose, and that is like the more energy is spent on the securing the network, the more energy is required to attack the network. So like from like early Bitcoiners, they make the argument that because it is consuming so much energy, it is becoming more and more secure. And you made a great point when you compare that to banks. Banks are spending a lot of costs on the security, on a physical security, even on the like a virtual security, maybe even like human stuff that is paid for your money to be safe. And in this way, the energy consumption is framed in Bitcoin. But I think it is fair in terms of, as a humanity, we are currently trying to like decrease our energy consumption. So if we see another entity that is kind of like growing in energy consumption, like that is really hard to argue for. There is a different type of systems because Bitcoin is based on proof of work, and that word work is actually that energy consumption. So there is a different type of cryptocurrencies that is proof of stake. And that doesn't require almost any energy consumption, because the basic principle of how the network is secured is not by the amount of energy, but by the amount of coins or stake that someone is willing to lock into this vault that is served as a security for the network. So it is actually a lively discussion in the industry, in crypto, and that's why most of the new blockchains are built with this proof of stake system that is not consuming any energy.
So that's sort of more efficient, right?
Yes, it's from energy point of view, it's much more efficient.
And what I've noticed as well is that, as you said, it is possible to change, right? The coins fork. So I've noticed some of the older coins are starting to work on being more energy efficient. I think Ethereum is about to go through a new change that'll make them more energy efficient. The two I've been looking at are like Stellar Lumens and Ripple, which, I mean, I don't know if you have any other recommendations for people interested in investing in crypto for the most efficient coins you can get.
Most efficient. I cannot tell which one is most efficient, but for instance, we're building on Polkadot. So I like Polkadot, or maybe Cosmos. Cosmos is fine too. So yes, Ethereum is currently working on the proof of work system, but there is Ethereum 2.0, which is a new version, and it should soon be in production. Some parts of the system are already in production, and it should run on proof of stake. So it should migrate from all those energy consuming type of blockchain into this much more efficient type of blockchain that will not consume basically almost any energy.
Okay. So it is a valid criticism in some cases, but it's something that's being worked on.
Yes, I think it is fair criticism.
I mean, and yeah, I don't think there's many industries in the world today that couldn't be paying attention and working on, say, being more energy efficient. It's a global problem, so fair enough. One thing, so I just want to hark back to something you said earlier, which I thought was fascinating. The idea that sort of like banks they have power, they can manipulate markets, they can be a little bit unfair. And you sort of said how crypto can avoid that, right? Like, because it's more decentralized. But, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes, I read you shared a very interesting white paper or blog about how in certain cases miners can abuse the system to extract more value with the timing of how they do things. I don't know if you can simplify. It was a great paper, but I don't understand it well enough to say it in 2 sentences.
Yeah. Oh, we are going into very deep topics, but like currently it was discovered that miners have some amount of power. The thing about blockchains is that it is distributed, it is decentralized, and every entity that is running a full node of the blockchain is somewhat equal to the other entity. But there are still entities that have a little bit more power than the others. It just depends on how you think about the verticals of power within that system. So in that paper that I've shared, I think it was like a year ago, because that is actually one of our solutions that we are currently bringing into the market on our blockchain. So miners basically have power to reorder transactions in any way they like to. And the thing is that you, Kris, you are going to buy Bitcoin, or you are on Ethereum and you want to buy some coin, and miners see that you are ordering some coin for, I don't know, $1,000 or 1,000 euros. So what he's going to do, the miner, he's going to put his own order before your order, and he's going to front run you. So it's a type of insider trading where miners know what is going to happen on the blockchain. And when they have the right to create a block, they basically can reorder transaction in a whatever way, and they can profit out of it. So this is a big problem, because it was discovered like maybe 2 years ago. So it's like very, very recently, and all those architectures of blockchains like Ethereum or Polkadot, or basically any kind of architecture of blockchain, they were not thinking about it because it wasn't considered as a problem. But right now it is a problem. So yes, it's one of the hot topics in industry, and it's being solved. Even on Ethereum, even some new architectures of the blockchain, there is quite some research behind it, and I believe that within 1 year we will have a very solid solution for this problem.
Yeah. Well, this is why I've always found talking to you about this sort of thing so interesting, because when I first came to you, right? Oh, you work in that space. Okay, yeah, I've heard loads of criticisms about that space. And of course, none of them were new to you. And you're like, yes, like as with any things, there are criticisms, some more valid than others. Some we already have a solution for, some we're working on. And I think that's what's interesting, is that like any new tech or science, right? Like you can be like, look, there's a mistake there. And you're like, yeah, there's always mistakes. We're always working on new things. There's always something new to fix and something new to improve, right?
Yeah. Well, like with everything, like the name of your podcast, you know, like beyond binary thinking, like things are never black and white. Things are never so simple. You can always find new angles, how you can find weaknesses in any type of design or any type of system. So of course there are criticisms of blockchains, many valid ones, but they are, at least for me, they are not so strong to make me go away from the industry. You know, I still think I know better and stronger arguments why blockchains are the future.
Yeah, and of course, anywhere where there's money to be made, there will be people trying to find a hack, a way around, right? It'll always be a bit of a game of cat and mouse.
Yeah, well, because the blockchains are inherently about transacting economic value, it is very attractive for all the humanity, I would say. You know, for instance, we've been trading on Ethereum on certain decentralized exchanges only for research purposes, and there is activity basically from all over the world. You know, like imagine you have this one place where basically anyone from the world is looking into, and it's trying to somewhat compete with everyone, you know. So it's crazy if you think about the global scale, that I don't know, some very experienced engineer from Silicon Valley is competing with some genius Indian kid on the same level, right? Because everything is open access and it's accessible and visible to anyone.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's like a real-time, massive multiplayer game, Royal Rumble, right?
Yeah, and that's why crypto is very crazy industry in terms like it is changing every 2-3 months. Like I would say every 2 months there is just some big event happening, some big hack, sometimes like this big news coming. Everything is so volatile. Everything is just this big goulash that is growing and kind of like always mingling. So I cannot imagine a more faster growing in innovations industry than crypto right now.
So it sounds very exciting,
Yeah.
but I think one of the thoughts that I have coming off of that is that it makes it very hard for the average retail, I put investor in air quotes because I think most of them are gamblers, let's be honest, to know what they're getting into. Because as you say, it's always changing. It's always complex. The learning curve is getting steeper and steeper, right? So,
yeah, but I think, for instance, that what we are building, we have very retail focus. So we want to abstract away all the mess, for people to not be thinking about the complexities of the system. They just want to buy some coin, so they just come and they buy it very seamlessly and very effortlessly. And this is actually the aim of many players in the system.
But how do they know? How do they do enough research to know that your platform is that versus some scammer that copy pastes your white paper and presents themselves as charming as well, right?
Yeah, that's a great point, because ultimately, even the most transparent system is going to be relying on some authority that has the knowledge and power to actually inspect the system and say if it's safe or not. So blockchains are inherently cryptographic systems, and you need some expert to tell you, like, I verified it and it is good, you can trust it, and you can go. But it's in a similar way how internet works, right? Because right now we have like encrypted. You have cryptography in every email you send, right? But you don't know the mathematics behind the cryptography. And that cryptography is open source, so you can verify it by yourself. But you and even me, I don't have the power to like even assess like, is it good cryptography or not? But because it is public, and there are certain authorities, I don't know, in academia or maybe some public known figures that understand the cryptography, they are saying like, this is safe, we are using this, and you are trusting those authorities, and that's why you are using it in your email.
So this is the crux of the tension I wanted to get into. So, and to be fair, like, I agree with you. I don't think everything needs to be decentralized. It's okay for the technology to be decentralized, but at a certain point, you do need trust, authority, or authoritative, knowledgeable experts who have opinions on things. But so much of the hype from the early crypto enthusiasts was about how everything would be decentralized all the way down, right? And I think at a certain point, if I'm giving you my hard-earned dollars, there needs to be an authority that says, hey, that guy's a scammer and he stole your money, he should be arrested and you should get your money back. And I think the dream of crypto replacing banks sort of misses that banks do have value. Like, people do like having transactions with guarantees, and people who get arrested if they steal from them, and the ability to get money back from fraud that's insured, and all these
but
quite boring but necessary things for an economy to function.
Yeah, but I would like to point out two things. So first, it was popular like a few years ago. It is to some degree popular still nowadays, like be your own bank. That means like if you are storing your Bitcoins in your computer, because you have the wallet and private key stored in your computer. So in that way, you are kind of like a sovereign bank by yourself, and you are responsible for the security, but you have the power to say that if I own this, no one can take it away from me. But when you are using banks, ultimately it's about their decision if they can take your money or not. So that is one thing. That's why like crypto was framed as a digital cash. So it's kind of like it works in the same way like a cash. You know, if you have a cash in your wallet and you lose your wallet, you basically the cash is gone, right? So in a similar way, it works with the digital money. Now, like Bitcoin, if you lose the wallet from your computer, I don't know, you got erased computer, or I don't know, someone steals it and delete it, your money are basically gone. So it's a kind of like a different paradigm on how to think about even digital stuff on the internet. Because right now, if we have, you know, imagine you have some picture of something stored in your Facebook profile, and if you delete it from your Facebook profile, it is still somewhere else stored, or you can copy that file and send it to your friend, and suddenly there are 2 copies, 3 copies, 5 copies. But blockchains or Bitcoin creates this new type of thing where it is still digital, but it cannot be copied. Right, so it's only like on the one place, and that's how it is called, like digital scarcity. That's why it is framed. And I would just come into another topic, like one of the confirmation that it is actually really interesting architecture, because it's a very different paradigm of what we have currently at Facebook, is central bank digital currencies. So right now, even like European Central Bank, Fed, FED, American Central Bank, they are building their own digital cryptocurrency, which will be a new type of money on the internet, and it will have a new category even in the law. So
yeah, that's going to be an interesting time, I think, for the crypto world and for the rest of us.
Yeah. I would, and another thing that is interesting is that imagine that you want to send some money to China because you have some Chinese contractors. They are doing some work for you. I don't know, they are designing or they are maybe coding something. And if you want to send money through traditional financial system, it's going to take days, maybe sometimes even weeks. So it's not really easy to send economic value on a global scale. If you're sending money only within England, within country, or maybe within the Eurozone, it is somewhat okay. It's fast, so there's no problem. But if you are transacting globally, there is some delay. If you use blockchain, you have it in seconds, right? So it's basically lowering the frictions, making delays much smaller, and making things just run faster all over the world.
Fair. So I've heard these scare stories that China will make this massive digital currency and it will replace America's monopoly on the gold standard.
Okay, this is really conspiracy thinking. You cannot take my words for it here, but sure. I was reading the paper from Chinese central bank. It was translated into English. Someone translated it into English. And I was amazed by the level of their understanding of the topic. They understood blockchain really deeply, and I have to say. And my kind of conspiracy theory is that because they understand it, if they create some sort of like a blockchain Chinese money, because the architecture is in a way that it's very easily sent throughout the globe, in that way, they can basically spam the world with Chinese money very easily. Because it's impossible to do that through traditional financial system. But once you release the blockchain type of money, you can instantaneously send it to Africa, to Europe, to US, basically to anyone. And that way you can basically rain your money all over the world. And in that way, they can somewhat like create a bigger economy on the global scale, but with their money. So I think that this might be even the motivation from European leaders and maybe from American leaders, that they actually see this as a threat, and they have to compete on the same level. So they have to come up with the same type of money that have the same power to be spread all across the world. Because if they won't be very careful, it's going to end up in a way that you are going to go to a hackathon in your college, in your city, and the students there will not be thinking about how to hack products, I don't know, for some startup idea for their own, but they are going to be creating products on top of Chinese money, right? For instance, because it's going to be much more popular and it's going to be all over the place.
Yeah, very interesting. And yeah, certainly a lot of countries owe China money, so and a few favors as well. So I could see it happening. It's not entirely crazy conspiracy. I do laugh often. I'm going to get a bit political here, as I often do, but you know the meme where someone puts a stick in their bicycle and then falls over and then blames something else. You see, right? You know that meme. Yeah, often America like blames China for its own downfall. And yes, likewise here, I can very much see China being well positioned to do a lot of things because they tend to look 50 years into the future, and Western democracies are struggling to think in terms of that timescale.
Yeah, they are very, very progressive in understanding the technology, and even from the statistics and numbers, right now most of the activity on the blockchains is coming from Asia. It's not anymore coming from Western countries. So
well, the trading platform I use, Binance, that's Korean, right?
No one really knows where is it from.
Sounds legit. I saw a photo of a Korean guy,
Is he Korean? I'm not sure. I think
so.
Binance is Chinese, but yeah, it is Asian, and they are trying really hard to get into Western markets right now in the US and Europe. Yeah.
Oh, well, you say trying really hard, yes, because I recently got an email notification telling me I wouldn't be able to deposit any money or withdraw any money.
Exactly.
Which is concerning, but I'm a hodler, so I'm like, okay, that's I'm sure they'll work it out in 2 years' time.
Well, right now you have to go through the KYC, know your customers. So you have to register and go through the standard procedures that are legitimate within Western legal systems. And Binance has no other choice than to comply with it.
And that's to do things like stop fraud and terrorist laundering and all that, right? The old joke as well is that for years, I think they found that the major banks were absolutely allowing the transfer of money to countries such as Iran, even in the middle of embargoes and boycotts. And I think famously HSBC was taking a lot of drug cartel money in Mexico, Colombia. There's a Matt Taibbi did a brilliant takedown piece, a Rolling Stone journalist, about how HSBC had banks where the cartel requested, they're like, it takes us too long to walk in and give you duffel bags filled with money, so we just want like a sliding panel so we can just drive by an armed Humvee, throw in 4 duffel bags with millions of dollars in, and you count it for us. And they went okay and did it. And like the IMF were looking at that and they're going like, so did you not ask any questions about where that money was coming from? They're like, no, it seemed legit. And now they're like, telling governments to, you should look into crypto, it looks dodgy. And it's like, as everyone's always said, yes, it's sometimes as dodgy as the centralized banks already are.
Yeah, there is fraud everywhere, and there are good people, there are bad people everywhere, basically. So it's regulators should not try generalize too much over any topic and just throw it away based on one wrong assumption.
That's a good point, but in a new space, there are less regulations, and often the people most hurt are amateur retail investors, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yes, of course, crypto is right now a gray zone, gray legal zone. There is a lot of topics that are just not. It is really unsure if they should fall under existing regulation or if new regulation should be created just for this purpose. And if you ask 10 lawyers, you will get 10 opinions, so.
Oh, no, you'll get 25 opinions because they charge by the hour.
Yeah, exactly. So we just have to wait for precedents and for new laws to be created that will clarify how like the innovation should be driven and how it should be created in this industry, and then we will see. But right now I like to compare it to early internet, back in the 90s when there was dot-com bubble. There has been a lot of gray zones even within the, like, should it be regulated, how it should be regulated. No one knew at the time, so it was actually very natural development of the society. This is basically how, I think it is very natural. There is just some new stuff being created and no one knows what this new stuff exactly is. So that's why we have like regulators. That's why we have lawmakers. They should think about it and create some law that makes it safe for everyone, for instance.
Yeah, safe and sensible while still allowing the thing to grow. I have compared it very much to the Wild West, and if you look at it, it's a fascinating period of history where, yeah, the further west you went, the sort of wilder it got and the less law there was. But that's also where the opportunity was, right? That's where the interesting pioneers were too. So.
Yeah, exactly. But that was almost, you can argue that was almost always a source of economic growth, because right now there is a big discussion, or at least I'm looking at the discussion that it seems like our economic growth is stalling, or it's like getting slower and slower, and it's really hard to find like new Wild Wests that could be the source of new economic growth. I think even Elon Musk is saying the same thing, that he sees the risk that our Earth is going to like not grow enough in economic terms, and that's why one of the solutions is go multiplanetary, because that is going to be a boost to basically to everything, right?
That sounds like something I would say if I had Elon Musk's shareholders. That's a good pitch. I mean, look, you can find fascinating quotes from 100 years ago, just after the discovery of electricity, where people were like, and again, the electricity had just been discovered, but not really for many practical purposes. And a bunch of people were like, looks like we've discovered everything there is to discover, guys. Can't imagine things changing much. And I think that classic Bill Gates quote where, like, change happens so slow and then suddenly overnight, right? I do feel we're in the middle of a in-between zeitgeist period where there's all these technologies happening and we won't really see their application until suddenly there's a dramatic breakthrough. Just to be a little bit optimistic, we'll see. Yeah. But something I'd really like to get into is so much of our economies, if you look at the last 40 years, have shifted from making things to like the finance industries, which arguably don't really. And at their best, finance helps lend money to innovative people who make things, right? But at their worst, and you mentioned the financial crisis. Before that, during it, and after it, we've just seen a bunch of billionaires and trillionaires, or trillions of dollars at least, just moving around the globe without really adding any value, right? Like, except for making the people who control that money richer. And I just wonder whether you think crypto is sort of part of that, if it's just like fintech finance, like helping investment bankers do some clever things to avoid tax, or whether you think there's a real technology there that will actually have tangible benefits for everyday people.
I would say that the word tangible is a bit hard to take into account, but I see it more as a platform or as an engine that will serve for economic value to be transferred globally. And in that way, it's going to enhance new business models. It's going to give opportunity to people to get some. So for instance, right now, there's this big hype of NFTs, like non-fungible tokens. That's basically, you know, you have some art.
People have always overpaid for art. People have always overinvested in bad tech ideas. Yeah. And now those two things have come together.
But you know how many there are artists right now who were saying that they were very underpaid, that they couldn't do art full time because they were just not basically paid, but because they are doing art and they are putting it on the blockchain, suddenly they have this very frictionless and very global platform where they can sell that art. And this is enabled exactly by blockchain because it is global. By default, it is public by default, it is accessible by everyone globally. And that's why you suddenly like one individual artist, you have suddenly a big global, you have a big global audience, right? So I would be thinking about blockchains of like something like that. So not a walled garden, but very open garden for everyone.
Okay, I hope a more exciting example comes up than some of the images I've seen. But do you know what? I think it's just a hobby of people to complain about the art world and complain about the investment world. Like, it's fair enough.
Yeah. Well, maybe another vertical that I like to sometimes talk about in crypto, and that is like popular domain, is decentralized autonomous organizations. So DAOs or DAOs. So right now, imagine you are creating a company. So you have to have a limited entity registered in some business registry. You have it verified by the government. You have some bank account that is tied to that legal entity. You have 4 co-founders or 5 co-founders, and you are somewhat managing the capital that is sitting on a bank account, and you are like collectively are making decisions about whatever is happening to that legal entity. So let's imagine that all of this that I just described would not happen, and it would be programmatically defined on Ethereum, on the blockchain. So there is no business registry, there is no government verifier, there is no bank account, there are no legal contracts between you and your co-founders.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the big one. Like, so what most people don't realize, and I think it's a huge barrier to creative entry for a business, is the 40-page contract you need to write in order to co-found a business together and prepare for that eventuality, that eventuality, that eventuality. Makes a lot of lawyers a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. So now there is like one developer who can code contracts for you, who can code simple rules, and your money or your initial capital will be driven by those rules that you've defined in the beginning. So the idea of DAOs is that you can have this organization defined purely on the blockchain, and it's governed by the like initial token holders of that entity on the blockchain. And I described an example like you and 3 of your co-founders, but now imagine there are DAOs that are basically governed by thousands or maybe 100,000 of people that have the collective power to vote on some initial capital that is sitting on a blockchain. And this is kind of shifting how you view how public money can be managed. because blockchains are inherently, everything is public, everything is verifiable, transparent to everyone. So I think that, for instance, DAOs can one day be very useful even on a local level, like local government, you know, in your city. So for instance, in your community, you have like neighbors, and you decide that you want to have some public budget, and you want it to be like very transparently and verifiably governed by everyone, where everyone see how all the others are voting and what are their decision thought processes are, and it's going to be managed purely on the blockchain. So that's another domain of crypto that is growing, and I think it's very interesting, even from point of view like how it can innovate even the management of public money.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and obviously there's all kinds of applications. I could imagine worker-owned cooperatives being very difficult to manage, right? But things like that, absolutely. Okay, yeah. I will definitely check out the DAO.
Definitely check it out. You know, there are nonprofits who are using like these transparent bank accounts within the banks, but again, transparent bank accounts are not so powerful as if you would have a DAO on the blockchain. You know, so the DAOs are much more powerful.
That is amazing. Okay, I will definitely look into it. Now, quick fire. So what are the weirdest conspiracy theories you've heard about crypto, blockchain, the weird misconceptions, the weird predictions you've had?
I wouldn't say it's like crazy, but it's weird. It's definitely weird that actually that is a conspiracy theory, that actually crypto was created by the governments, that it was created by NSA or like people in the US, because
the Illuminati.
Yeah, exactly, the Illuminati, and that basically that the governments they just know what is going to happen because they've created the crypto, and they've created it because we have no longer economic growth in the world, and we have to just somehow find new ways how to push the society into higher higher pace of economic growth. So they just released the crypto in an anonymous way, and now it's like in the hands of the people basically, but maybe they have the decryption keys of all the cryptography there.
Yeah, maybe, but then if that's the case, why didn't they just buy Bitcoin 5 years ago? They wouldn't need taxes anymore.
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
Peter, that was short and sweet. I loved it. Is there anything you'd like to direct our listeners to? Any way you'd recommend they check out any resources for further learning?
I would say that if someone doesn't have any experience with crypto, I would start really slowly with first baby steps, and that is like buying your first fraction of the Bitcoin. You don't have to buy the whole Bitcoin. It's enough to buy Bitcoin for $20 or 20 euros. So even go to some centralized exchange. It's not a problem, like Coinbase or maybe Kraken. Just buy the first Bitcoin, and then start like getting to know the first concepts of being your own bank. So there is this thing that is called like hardware wallet. So for instance, like Trezor or maybe Ledger or something like that. And if you buy the hardware wallet, you can transfer those Bitcoins from centralized exchange into your own wallet. And that is basically your own digital cash stored in your hands. So once you have that Bitcoin, once you have the first Ethereum, that's a great starting point how to like getting to know yourself. And there is a second step, which which is again very popular nowadays, is you can take that crypto, that Ethereum or that Bitcoin, and you can put it into smart contract, or let's say a vault on Ethereum, and it is bringing you yields because it is served as a working capital for some other people that are using that in their own smart contracts, in their own systems. So for instance, you can have like 10% yield per year on your Ethereum, which is really competitive comparing to when you are storing your money in a like traditional bank accounts. So I would do this.
Can I ask about that? So if the value goes up You get that as well?
What do you mean?
So you own Ethereum and then you store it in a contract, and then the value of Ethereum goes up.
You still have it.
You win
have
twice, right? Okay.
Yeah. You earn twice. Yeah, of course.
Oh, nice. Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you. That's the tip and a half. My main tip to anyone listening is if someone approaches you and says, so here's a coin and you buy into it, and then if you convince someone else to buy the coin, you get commission. And if they convince someone else to buy the coin, you'll get commission and they'll get commission. Just draw that on a piece of paper and you'll end up with a pyramid-shaped scheme that you need to avoid.
Yeah, we try to avoid all kinds of pyramid schemes in crypto.
Well, not everyone does manage to avoid it. And so, yes, that's my main advice is that if anyone approaches you with a hard sell to buy their coin, buy this coin now, buy this coin now, probably don't, because if they're paying commission, it's better to invest in a coin where there's mostly nerdy developers who are bad at sales. That's my recommendation.
And interesting thing about crypto is the same, that it's like early internet, and it basically attracts the whole spectrum of humanity. You have the worst people and you have the smartest people in crypto, and everything in between. So you never know who you meet when you meet someone, you know.
Yeah, but no, that's brilliant advice for getting started, and a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you, Kris.
I'll do links to your things below in the show notes. But one more time, what's the name of the thing you're working on at the moment?
We're called Mangata Finance, and we are an entity that will be open sourcing a decentralized trading protocol or decentralized exchange protocol that will be governed only by the community. And it will be running live early next year.
Superb. I will look forward to seeing it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Kris, for having me.
Always a pleasure. Cheers, mate. Nice. All right, done. So that was all right. Smashed out in an hour. Cheers.
Cheers.